What if writing your thoughts doesn't just help you feel better, but actually changes how your mind works? What if every time you put a thought on paper, you're training your brain to think differently the next time that thought appears? In the last video, we talked about why writing brings relief. Today, we're going deeper into how writing actually rewires the mind. Today, I am going to explain exactly how the simple act of writing your thoughts down physically and mentally rewires your brain. This is not just a theory or a helpful habit. It is a fundamental shift in how your biological and spiritual self processes reality. By the time we are finished, you will understand not just that writing helps, but exactly how it changes the architecture of your mind. In a few minutes, I will explain the specific mechanism that occurs in your brain the moment a pen touches paper. Most people miss one critical step in this process, and that's why they feel like they are writing in circles without finding relief. We are going to uncover that missing piece today, so that you can move from simple venting to true mental renewal. We often think of our minds as a vast, infinite space, but in reality, our conscious attention is quite limited. When you have a troubling thought, a fear about the future, or a hurt from the past, it occupies a space in what we might call your mental working memory. Think of this as a small room. If you keep every thought inside that room, it eventually becomes cluttered. You can't find the door, you can't see the windows, and you certainly can't find peace. When a thought is left unspoken and unwritten, it tends to loop. You've likely experienced this: a single sentence, or a single worry that plays over and over like a radio stuck on one frequency. It's like a spinning wheel that never touches the ground. It's moving fast, it's generating heat, but it isn't going anywhere. This is the exhaustion of overthinking. Your brain is trying to solve a problem, but because the problem is only living in the abstract world of your imagination, there is nothing for the brain to grab onto to resolve it. This internal recycling of thoughts creates an emotional weight that can feel indistinguishable from physical fatigue. You feel tired, not because you've done so much, but because your mind has been running a marathon in a room with no exit. Imagine the energy required to keep a beach ball submerged under the water. It doesn't look like you're doing much from the surface, but underneath, your muscles are straining. Your focus is consumed, and your energy is being depleted every single second. That is exactly what happens when we keep our inner world strictly internal. We are using massive amounts of biological energy just to keep our thoughts from surfacing, or to keep them organized in a space that has no shelves. Many of us have been taught that we should be able to simply think our way into a better mood or pray away a specific anxiety. While prayer is the foundation of our connection with God, have you ever noticed that sometimes your prayers feel like they are hitting the ceiling? Have you ever found yourself saying the same 3 sentences to God for an hour, but your heart still feels like a tangled knot? Thinking alone often fails to heal us because thinking is fluid. It's like trying to catch water with your bare hands. You can feel it, it's real, but it slips through your fingers the moment you try to examine it. God designed us as integrated beings, spirit, mind, and body. He did not design us for suppression, where we push thoughts down into the dark basement of our souls. He designed us for expression. When we look at the way the human soul is described in the Bible, we see a recurring theme of honesty. There is a reason why so much of the scripture is not just a list of rules, but a collection of songs, letters, and journals. God is not intimidated by the chaos of your inner world, but He knows that for you to find peace, that chaos must be given a form. It must be brought from the formless dark into the light of language. This is the first step of creation in Genesis, and it is the first step of recreation in your own mind. Consider for a moment the psychological cost of the unspoken. When a thought is trapped inside, it becomes magnified. Because it has no physical boundaries, it can grow to an infinite size. A small concern about a conversation you had yesterday can, within the span of an hour of quiet thinking, become a catastrophic belief that everyone dislikes you and your future is in jeopardy. Inside the mind, there are no walls to stop a thought from expanding. But the moment that thought is written down, it is trapped by the edges of the paper. It is forced to be a certain length. It is forced to use specific words. This is where the rewiring begins to take Routine, the transition from the infinite and scary to the finite and manageable. The reason most people struggle to find relief through thinking alone is that the brain treats an unwritten thought as an unfinished task. In psychology, there is a phenomenon where the mind remembers uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. Your brain is actually designed to keep pinging you with a thought until it feels the task has been processed. If you just think about your anxiety, the brain doesn't see that as progress. It sees it as a loop. It keeps the file open on your mental desktop, draining your RAM, slowing down your ability to be present, and making you feel perpetually on edge. Writing is the close file button for the brain. It signals to your nervous system that the information has been moved to a secure location. It is no longer a ghost that needs to be chased. It is a record that can be reviewed. This is a subtle but powerful shift in your biological state. When you write, you are effectively telling your amygdala, the part of your brain that scans for threats, that the threat has been identified, labeled, and archived. This is where the biblical foundation meets our modern understanding of the mind. We often see the phrase, "pour out your heart" in the Psalms. To pour out implies a container that was full. If you have a glass filled with muddy water, you cannot just pour clean water on top and expect it to be clear. You have to empty the glass first. Many of us are trying to fill our minds with positive affirmations, scriptures, or logical arguments while the muddy water of our unprocessed pain is still filling the container to the brim. Writing is the act of tipping the glass. It is the physical manifestation of pouring out. Think of your thoughts as a massive pile of tangled fishing line. If you just look at the pile, you feel overwhelmed. If you try to untangle it in your head, you get lost in the complexity. But if you take that line and begin to pull it out, inch by inch, and lay it straight across a table, you can see exactly where the knots are. You can see which parts are salvageable and which parts need to be cut away. Writing is the table. It provides the space for the untangling to happen. Without that external space, the knots only grow tighter the more you think about them. In a few moments, we will talk about the specific biological exit door that opens when you use a pen. But first, we must understand the spiritual weight of the hidden heart in the Bible. The heart is often described as a place that can be hardened or veiled. A hardened heart is often just a heart that has too many unprocessed layers. It's a heart that has stopped expressing because it has been overwhelmed by the weight of what it is carrying. When you begin to write, you are essentially softening the ground. You are breaking up the fallow ground of your soul so that the seed of truth can actually reach the soil. This is why many people find that they start writing about one thing, perhaps a frustration about their job, and within 10 minutes, they are crying over something that happened 10 years ago. The surface thought was just the lid on the container. Once the lid is removed, the deeper, more significant weights begin to surface. This is not a sign that you are getting worse. It is a sign that the exit door is working. It is a sign that your mind finally feels safe enough to let the deep things come to the light. Most of us live in a state of mental traffic. There are too many cars on too few lanes, and everyone is honking their horns. This creates a baseline level of stress that we eventually stop noticing until it manifests as physical illness or a sudden breakdown. Thinking alone is just more traffic. It's just more cars entering the highway. Writing, however, is like building an off. It allows the traffic to exit the main flow and find a place to park. This is the bridge to the science. When we talk about rewiring, we are talking about changing the physical pathways of the brain. Your brain is not a static organ. It is constantly being reshaped by your input and your output. If your only output is internal loops, you are strengthening the neural pathways of anxiety. You are making the anxiety highway wider and faster. But when you introduce the practice of writing, you are forcing your brain to use a completely different set of muscles. You are building a new road. In neuroscience, this is called neuroplasticity, and it is the most hopeful discovery in the history of brain science. It means that you are not stuck with the brain you have today. You are not a victim of your past thought patterns. You have the ability to literally change the physical structure of your mind by changing how you process your reality. But how does it work? Why does the brain respond so differently to writing than to speaking or thinking? To understand this, we have to look at the hierarchy of processing. Thinking is the lowest level of processing. It is fast, cheap, and often inaccurate. Speaking is the next level. It requires more coordination and forces a bit more structure. But writing is the highest level of processing. It is slow, it is deliberate, and it requires the most crosstalk between the different regions of your brain. When you write, you are engaging your motor cortex, your visual cortex, and your language centers all at the same time. You are pulling energy away from the emotional brain and forcing it into the logical brain. This is like a manual override for your emotions. You cannot write a sentence and be in a state of total blind panic at the exact same time. The very act of forming letters requires a level of cognitive control that naturally begins to dampen the fire of the emotional brain. This is the missing step that so many people fail to realize. They think they can just wait for the feeling to go away. But feelings don't go away by being ignored. They go away by being seen. In the same way that a child stops screaming once they know their parent has heard and understood them, your inner child, your emotional brain often won't stop screaming until you have heard it. Writing is the way you show your brain that you are listening. It is the way you validate the emotion without letting the emotion run the show. As we move into the actual mechanism of the how, I want you to prepare your mind to look at the brain not as a mysterious black box, but as a garden that you have been given the tools to tend. God gave you the pen as a spade. He gave you the paper as the soil. And the rewiring is simply the process of planting new things and pulling out the old dot in neuroscience. This is called neuroplasticity, but we can also think of it as mental sanctification. It is the process of bringing your mind into alignment with reality. And as we will see, this process is not just about relief, it is about renewal. It is about becoming a person whose mind is a place of order and light rather than a place of clutter and shadows. Think about the last time you felt truly overwhelmed. If you could have seen a map of your brain in that moment, you would have seen the amygdala, the almond-shaped part of your brain responsible for fear, glowing bright red. It was sending out a code blue to your entire body. Your heart rate went up, your breathing became shallow, and your ability to think creatively vanished. In that state, your brain is locked. It cannot learn new things. It cannot feel the peace of God. It is in survival mode. Now imagine that same person sits down and picks up a pen. Within minutes, the red light of the amygdala begins to dim. The blue light of the prefrontal cortex begins to glow. This isn't magic. It's the result of a biological shift. By translating a feeling into a word, you are performing what scientists call affective labeling. You are naming the beast. And once the beast has a name, it no longer has the power to remain invisible. This is why writing "I am afraid" is so much more powerful than just feeling afraid. The feeling is a cloud. The word is a stone. You can move a stone. You can build with a stone. You can throw a stone away. You can't do any of that with a cloud. As we go deeper today, we are going to explore why handwriting specifically, but the physical movement of the hand creates a unique neural signature that typing simply cannot match. We are going to look at the reticular activating system, which is the brain's filter, and how writing changes what you notice in your daily life. Most importantly, we are going to look at how this practice creates a bridge between your conscious mind and your subconscious. Many of our deepest hurts are stored in a part of the brain that doesn't have access to language. They are stored as feelings or body memories. Writing is the translator. That brings those memories into the light where they can finally be healed. If you have ever felt like you were a prisoner of your own mind, I want you to know that the key is much simpler than you think. It isn't a complex ritual or a secret knowledge. It is the humble practice of being honest on paper. It is the willingness to pour out so that you can be filled up. In a few minutes, I will explain exactly what changes in your brain the moment the pen touches the page. We will look at the traffic control system of the mind and why writing is the only way to clear the road. Most people spend their lives trying to drive faster through the mental clutter. Today, we are going to learn how to clear the clutter so the road is wide open. This is the promise of the renewed mind. It isn't a mind that never has a dark thought. It is a mind that knows what to do with a dark thought when it arrives. It is a mind that has an exit door. It is a mind that has been rewired for peace. So, let's look at the mechanism. What is actually happening in the millisecond that you decide to write a thought down? What is the spark that starts the rewiring process? To understand this, we have to look at the relationship between your hand and your frontal lobe. This connection is one of the most sophisticated circuits in the human body. When you think a thought, it is purely internal. It has no physical weight. But the moment you engage the hand, you are engaging proprioception, your body's sense of itself in space. You are creating a physical anchor for an abstract idea. This anchoring is the secret to why writing works when just thinking fails. You are literally grounding your thoughts into the physical world. Imagine your mind is a kite. On a windy day of stress, the kite is tossing and turning, diving toward the ground and threatening to break its string. Thinking is like trying to yell at the kite to fly straight. It doesn't work. But writing is like grabbing the string with both hands and firmly planting your feet. It doesn't stop the wind, but it gives the kite a center. It gives it a point of reference. This point of reference is what allows the brain to begin the work of reorganization. Without a reference point, the brain is just reacting. With a reference point, the brain can begin to sort. This is where we see the transition from the spinning wheel to the exit door. The spinning wheel is a brain that is closed. The exit door is a brain that is open. Writing is the act of opening that door. And once the door is open, the pressure begins to drop immediately. This is not just for crisis moments. This is for the daily maintenance of the soul. Just as we wash our bodies and clean our homes, we must clean our minds. We must give the daily debris of life a place to go. If we don't, that debris piles up until it becomes a wall between us and the peace we are looking for. In the next section, we will look at how this process untangles the cords of your life. We will look at the specific way that handwriting activates the reticular activating system, and how this changes your perception of your problems. You will see that writing doesn't just change how you feel, it changes what you see. This is the deeper level we promised. This is the how, and it all starts with the courage to pick up the pen. In neuroscience, this is called neuroplasticity. And as we explore this, we find that the brain's ability to remap itself is directly tied to the intensity and duration of our focus. When we write, we are providing a high-intensity focus on a single point. We are telling the brain, this matters. Look at this, and the brain, being the faithful servant it is, begins to build the architecture to support that focus. This is how you rewire a mind, one word at a time, one sentence at a time, one page at a time. You are not just journaling, you are architecting a new way of being. You are building a mind that is no longer a room with no exit, but a room with a view. A room where the light can get in, and the peace of God can finally reside. Let's talk about the exit door in more detail. In the world of biology, every system needs an exhaust. A car needs an exhaust pipe to let out the fumes of the engine. A cell needs a way to move waste across the cell membrane. Even the earth has cycles of evaporation and rain. Your mind is an engine. It produces fumes, byproducts of the combustion of daily life. Stress, social friction, decision fatigue. These are the exhaust of being alive. If you plug the exhaust pipe of a car, the engine will eventually explode or stall. Most people are walking around with plugged mental exhaust pipes. They have no way to vent the fumes of their internal life. Writing is that exhaust system. It is the safety valve that allows the pressure to escape before it causes a system failure. But it's even more sophisticated than that. Writing doesn't just let things out, it transforms them as they pass through the door. This is the alchemy of the pen. A thought enters the exit door as a chaotic, frightening fume, but it emerges on the paper as a structured, understandable word. This transformation is where the healing happens. Why? Because your brain is designed to master its environment. When something is formless, the brain cannot master it. It can only fear it. But when something has a form, the brain can categorize it, understand it, and file it away. By writing, you are giving your brain the form it needs to do its job. You are moving from the role of victim to the role of observer. This is the clarity we all crave. Clarity isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of vision. It's being able to see the problems for what they are and what they are not. In the coming minutes, we will look at how this vision specifically changes your threat response. We will look at why a written down problem feels 50% smaller the moment it hits the page. And we will see how this downward shift in stress allows your spiritual ears to open. You see, it's hard to hear the still small voice of God when your own loud, frantic voice is screaming in a loop. Writing shushes the frantic voice, so you can hear the true voice. This is the alignment we will discuss at the end. But for now, understand this: writing is not a chore. It is a liberation. It is the way you set the captives free in your own mind. It is the way you open the eyes of the blind parts of your soul. This is the power of the pen. This is the how of rewiring. And it is available to you right now as we move forward. Keep this image in your mind. Every word you write is a brick in the new road you are building. You are moving toward a mind that is renewed, a mind that is resilient, a mind that is at rest. Let's look at the science of the hand. Why the pen? Why not the keyboard? This is where the neuroscience gets truly fascinating. When you type, you are performing a monotonous motor task. Every letter feels the same to your fingers, a simple click. But when you write by hand, every letter has a unique shape. Your brain has to map the specific curves and lines of an A versus a B. This requires a much higher level of neurological engagement. Studies have shown that handwriting activates the reticular activating system RAS in a way that typing does not. The RAS is the gatekeeper of your brain. It decides what information gets into your conscious mind and what gets filtered out. When you write by hand, you are notifying the gatekeeper that this information is top priority. You are tuning your brain's filter. This is why, after writing down a goal or a prayer, you suddenly start noticing opportunities or answers that were always there, but that your filter was blocking out. You have reprogrammed your filter. You have rewired your attention. This is the subtle but powerful shift we mentioned at the beginning. It isn't just that you feel better, it's that you see differently. Your brain is now scanning the world for solutions rather than threats. It is looking for peace rather than problems. And this, my friends, is the definition of a renewed mind. It is a mind that has been retuned to the frequency of truth. So, as we proceed, remember, the mechanism is transformation. The tool is handwriting, and the result is renewal. Let's go deeper into the neural pathways themselves. Every time you choose to write, instead of loop, you are starving the old pathway. Neural pathways work on the use it or lose it principle. If you stop walking the anxiety road, it will eventually grow over with weeds. It will become harder for your brain to accidentally fall into that trap. Conversely, the more you walk the peace road through written processing, the smoother and faster that road becomes. Eventually, peace becomes your default setting. You don't have to try to be calm. Your brain has been physically rebuilt to be calm. This is the end result of the work. This is the architecture of the mind we promised to reveal. And it all starts with a single sentence. Today, I feel. In the next section, we will look at why this works when nothing else does. We will look at the safety of the page and why the brain trusts the paper more than it trusts itself. Stay with me. We are just getting to the most important part. Let's go deeper into the science of the hand. Why the pen? Why not the keyboard? This is where the neuroscience gets truly fascinating and where the physical rewiring of your brain becomes undeniable. When you type on a keyboard, your brain is performing a monotonous motor task. Whether you press the letter A or the letter Z, the physical movement is nearly identical, a simple downward tap of a finger. Your brain does not have to distinguish the shape of the letter through movement. It only has to recognize the location of the key. But when you write by hand, you are engaging in what scientists call a complex graphomotor task. Every single letter in the alphabet has a unique shape memory. To write the letter G, Your hand must move in a specific curving and looping sequence that is entirely different from the sharp, angular movements required to write the letter K. This requires your brain to retrieve a specific motor program for every single character you produce. This constant, varied movement creates a much higher level of neurological engagement. It's like the difference between walking on a treadmill in a dark room versus hiking a complex trail through a forest. On the treadmill, your brain can check out. On the trail, your brain must be fully online to navigate every route. Rock and turn. When you write your thoughts by hand, you are essentially forcing your brain to hike the trail of your own inner world. This unique neural signature acts as a deep encoding process. Studies using brain imaging have shown that handwriting activates the reticular activating system, or the RAS, in a way that typing simply cannot match. To understand the power of your mind, you must understand the RAS. Think of it as the gatekeeper or the filter of your brain. Every second, millions of bits of information are screaming for your attention. If you noticed everything, the hum of the refrigerator, the feeling of your socks on your feet, the dust motes in the air, you would be completely overwhelmed. The RAS is the system that decides what gets through to your conscious awareness and what gets discarded. When you write a thought down by hand, you are sending a high-priority memo to your gatekeeper. You are saying, "This information matters. This is the frequency I want you to tune into." This is why, after writing down a specific worry or a specific goal, you suddenly start noticing things in your environment that relate to it. You haven't changed the world. You have changed the filter through which you see the world. You have retuned your internal radio. This is the bridge to the biblical principle of watchfulness. We are told to guard our hearts with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life. Guarding the heart is, in a neurological sense, the act of managing your reticular activating system. If you allow your filter to be set by the news, by social media, or by the repetitive loops of your own anxiety, you will only notice things that confirm those fears. But when you use writing to intentionally set your focus, you are taking back the guard post of your mind. You are deciding what is allowed to enter your sanctuary. Consider the mechanism of the exit door in even finer detail. There is a specific millisecond between the moment a thought arises and the moment the ink hits the page. In that tiny gap, something profound happens. You are introducing a delay. Thinking is lightning fast, which is why it often feels out of control. But writing is slow. You can only write as fast as your hand can move. This physical limitation is actually a biological blessing. It forces the train of your thoughts to slow down so that the engineer of your logic can catch up. When you are in a state of high stress, your thoughts are like a flash flood, rushing, muddy, and destructive. Writing acts as a dam. It catches the water, slows the flow, and allows the sediment to settle. Once the water is still, you can see the bottom. You can see the truth. This slowing down is what allows the prefrontal cortex to exert its top-down control over the emotional amygdala. You are literally cooling your brain through the slow, rhythmic movement of the pen. This also touches on the concept of cognitive load. Our brains have a finite amount of mental energy or bandwidth available at any given moment. When you are holding on to a secret, a resentment, or an unprocessed fear, that item is taking up a significant portion of your bandwidth. It's like running a heavy application in the background of your smartphone. It drains the battery and makes everything else run slower. Writing is the act of offloading that data to an external hard drive, the paper. Once the thought is on the paper, your brain's RAM is cleared. You don't have to keep rehearsing the thought to make sure you don't forget it or to try and solve it. The brain looks at the paper and says, "Okay, that information is safe. I can let go of the tension now." This is why you often feel a literal physical drop in your shoulders after a session of honest writing. It isn't just feeling better, it is the result of a massive reduction in cognitive load. You have more energy to be present, to love others, and to hear the voice of God because you are no longer using 80% of your energy just to hold your thoughts in place. Now, let's look at why this rewires the mind over time. In neuroscience, there is a famous phrase, "Neurons that fire together, wire together." Every time you have a fearful thought and you choose to let it loop, you are firing the fear circuit. You are making it stronger. You are making it more automatic. But when you have a fearful thought and you choose to write it down and then analyze it through the lens of truth, you are firing a new circuit. You are connecting the fear center to the wisdom center. By doing this repeatedly, you are creating a bypass in your brain. Eventually, when a fearful thought arises, your brain won't automatically go to the panic loop. Instead, it will have a conditioned response to move toward processing and resolution. You are physically building a new neural highway. This is where the repetition and emotional safety come in. Your brain is a prediction machine. It is always trying to guess what will happen next based on what happened before. If, for years, your internal processing has always led to more anxiety, your brain predicts that thoughts are dangerous. But if you create a habit of the pen, you are teaching your brain a new prediction. When I have a heavy thought, I can process it, and I will find relief. This creates a sense of emotional safety. Your nervous system stops being afraid of its own thoughts. You develop a metacognitive awareness, the ability to think about your thinking. You become the observer of the storm rather than the person drowning in it. This process mirrors the biblical concept of Ebenezer, the stones of help. In the Old Testament, the Israelites would set up a physical stone to remember where God had helped them. Writing is your Ebenezer. It is a physical monument to your own journey of healing. When you look back at a journal entry from 6 months ago, you see a problem that felt like an unclimbable mountain. But from your current vantage point, you see that you made it over. You see that the mountain was actually a pathway. This physical evidence of your own resilience is incredibly powerful for the brain. It provides the data the brain needs to trust itself and to trust God in the next storm. Thinking about your past victories is helpful, but seeing the written record of them is authoritative. It shuts down the lies of the enemy and the distortions of the ego, because the ink doesn't lie. What happens next is subtle, but it is the most powerful part of the mechanism. It is the alignment between belief, emotion, and attention. Most of us live in a state of internal fragmentation. Our beliefs say one thing, God is good, our emotions feel another, I am in danger. And our attention is somewhere else entirely, scrolling through a feed. This fragmentation is the definition of unrest. It is a house divided against itself. Writing is the integrator. It pulls all the pieces of the self into one focal point, the tip of the pen. In that moment of writing, your beliefs are being challenged by your emotions on the page. Your attention is fully engaged. You are forcing these different parts of yourself to talk to each other. You are bringing the heart and the mind into the same room. This is why writing works when nothing else does. It is the only practice that simultaneously engages the body, the soul, and the spirit in a single focused act of truth-telling. It is the physical manifestation of bringing every thought captive. You aren't just trying to capture the thought, you are literally pinning it to the page. Now, let's address the practical application, because this is where many people feel overwhelmed. They think they need to be writers. They think they need to have profound insights. But the neuroscience shows that the benefit comes from the process, not the product. In fact, some studies show that messy writing, where you don't worry about grammar or logic, is actually more effective for emotional processing because it bypasses the internal critic. The internal critic is that voice that says, you shouldn't feel this way, or this doesn't make sense. When you are thinking, the critic is very loud. But when you are free writing, you can outrun the critic. You can move the pen so fast that the critic doesn't have time to edit your emotions. This is honesty over beauty. Think of it like cleaning out a garage that has been neglected for years. When you first open the door and look at the mountain of boxes, broken tools, and forgotten relics of the past, your first instinct is to turn around and close the door. The mess feels too large. It feels like an extension of your own failure. Most of us treat our minds exactly like this. We know there is a mess of unprocessed pain, old resentments, and cluttered anxieties inside. But because we don't have a system to deal with it, we just keep the door shut. We live in the small, cramped space that is left over. wondering why we feel so restricted and heavy. If you try to organize the trash as you find it, picking up one item and wondering exactly where it belongs before you move the next, you will never finish. You will get exhausted by the decision-making process before you even make a dent. This is why thinking alone feels so tiring. Your brain is trying to file information that hasn't even been identified yet. You have to just start throwing things out into the driveway first. You have to get the items out of the dark, cramped corners and into the sunlight where you can actually see them. You have to see the mess in the light before you can decide what to keep and what to throw away. Writing is that driveway. It is the open, sunlit space where the clutter of your soul is finally exposed to the air. On the page, a thought cannot hide behind another thought. It is forced to stand alone. When you see a fear sitting there in the middle of a white driveway, it often looks much smaller and less intimidating than it did when it was lurking in the back of the garage. In the dark, your imagination fills in the gaps, making every box look like a monster. In the light of the driveway, you realize it's just an old box of papers that you don't need anymore. If you are just starting this process, the resistance will be strong. Your brain likes its messy garage because, even though it's cramped, it's familiar. To bypass this resistance, I recommend the 10-minute rule. This is not about writing a masterpiece, it is about biological evacuation. Set a physical time and not the one on your phone where notifications can distract you, but a simple kitchen timer or a dedicated clock. For 10 minutes, do not let the pen stop moving. This is a non-negotiable rule. The physical movement of the hand is the key that keeps the exit door open. If you don't know what to write, write "I don't know what to write," or "this feels silly," or "I am just staring at the wall" over and over until a real thought emerges. Do not lift the pen. This priming of the pump is necessary because your mind has spent years building dams to keep the deep water thoughts from surfacing. Your surface-level social mind wants to keep things polite and organized. It wants to edit you. By refusing to stop the pen, you are moving faster than your internal editor can keep up with. You are exhausting the part of your brain that tries to perform and forcing the deeper, more honest parts of your soul to speak. What you will find is a very specific neurological progression during those 10 minutes. The first 3 minutes are usually nothing but surface noise. This is the static of your daily life complaints about the weather, what you ate for lunch, the fact that your back aches, or how tired you feel. Many people stop here. They think, "See, I have nothing important to say." But you must realize that this surface noise is just the dust on the boxes. You have to blow the dust off before you can see what is inside. Around the 5-minute mark, something shifts. The social persona gets bored and tired of trying to be interesting. The subconscious begins to speak. You might find yourself writing a sentence that surprises you. You might find a name appearing on the page that you haven't thought about in weeks. You might find an old anger or a hidden grief beginning to leak through the ink. This is the transition zone. It is the moment where the clutter starts moving from the back of the garage to the driveway. By the 7 or 8-minute mark, the real problem starts to surface. This is where the rewiring becomes surgical. You are no longer just venting. You are getting to the root of the weed. You might realize that your anger at your spouse isn't actually about the dishes. It's about a feeling of being unseen that started in your childhood. You might realize that your fear of the future is actually a lack of trust in God's provision. When these roots appear on the paper, the power they have over your subconscious begins to wither. A weed cannot survive when its roots are exposed to the sun. And this is why consistency over intensity is the rule that changes everything. Your brain is not a computer that you can just reformat in one afternoon. It is a biological organ that grows and changes through rhythm. You don't need to write for 3 hours once a month in a dramatic emotional purge. In fact, that can often be counterproductive, as it leaves you feeling raw and overwhelmed. Your brain learns and rewires through small, frequent pulses of safety. 10 minutes every morning is 1,000 times more effective than a writing retreat once a year. When you do this daily, you are training your nervous system to understand that expression is a daily safety ritual. You are teaching your amygdala that it doesn't need to store up the stress of the day because it knows there is an appointment with the pen tomorrow morning. You are brushing the teeth of your soul. Just as physical hygiene prevents decay in the body, this mental hygiene prevents the decay of bitterness and chronic anxiety in the heart. As you commit to this daily rhythm, you will begin to notice a profound change in your threat response during the rest of your day. This is the most visible evidence of neuroplasticity. Things that used to trigger you into a 3-day spiral of overthinking and self-doubt will now only bother you for an hour, or perhaps even just a few minutes. Why does this happen? It happens because you have created a place for the trigger to go. When someone says something hurtful or a plan falls through, the old, unwired version of you would have taken that thought and put it into the looping machine of your mind, where it would grind away at your peace for days. But the rewired version of you says, I see this thought. I don't need to solve it right now because I have a session with my journal tomorrow morning. I will put it on the driveway then. You have developed a system for processing reality. You aren't a victim of the events of your life anymore. You are becoming a journalist of your own experience. A victim is someone to whom things happen. A journalist is someone who observes what is happening and records it. This distance is the difference between drowning in a wave and watching the wave from the shore. You can see the wave's height, you can see its power, but it can no longer pull you under. This shifting of roles is the ultimate goal of In terms of your brain's architecture, you are moving the center of gravity from the limbic system, the reactive, emotional, and primal part of the brain, to the executive centers in the prefrontal cortex. You are becoming the proactive leader of your own internal world. You are becoming the scribe of your own heart. In the Bible, scribes were more than just people who wrote things down. They were guardians of the truth. They were responsible for ensuring that the word was preserved and not distorted by the passage of time or the whims of emotion. When you write your thoughts, you are performing a scribal duty for your own soul. You are separating the distortions of your feelings from the truth of your reality. You are guarding the narrative of your life, ensuring that it is written by the Spirit and not by the shadows of your past. And finally, we must speak about the spiritual alignment that happens in the deep, intentional silence of writing. We live in a world that is terrified of silence. We are constantly being spoken to by our devices, by the media, by the endless stream of opinions that fill our social feeds. Most of us haven't had a truly original or quiet thought in years, because our internal space is constantly occupied by the noise of the world. Even when we are alone, we have voices in our pockets through our phones, demanding our attention and shaping our anxieties. Writing is one of the very few ways to create active silence. It is a silence that isn't just the absence of noise, but the presence of focus. When you write, you are talking to yourself and to God. But you are doing it in a way that requires you to be physically still. You cannot pace around the room while you write. You cannot scroll while you write. You must sit. You must breathe. You must wait for the next word. Be still and know that I am God. We often read that verse as a call to stop moving, but the original meaning is more like slacken or let go. It is a call to release the grip you have on your own life. Writing is the physical act of slackening the grip. That knowing described in the scripture isn't an intellectual fact that you memorize. It is an experiential certainty that settles into your bones. It is the knowing that only comes when the noise of the world has stopped. The clutter of the mind has been moved to the driveway, and the vessel of your soul is finally empty enough to be filled with something new. Writing is the way we prepare the way of the Lord in the wilderness of our own hearts. John the Baptist called for the making of crooked paths straight and the leveling of mountains. In our internal world, crooked paths are the twisted logics of our insecurities. The mountains are our pride and our self. The valleys are our depressions and our sense of worthlessness. Writing is the earth-moving equipment of the soul. We are leveling the ground so that the Spirit of God has a clear path to reach us. We are creating a landing strip for the Holy Spirit to bring peace, clarity, and direction. This is the deeper reason why writing rewires the mind. It isn't just about psychology or self-help. It is about pneumatology, the study, and the work of the Spirit. It is about creating a temple that is clean and ordered. God is a God of order, not of confusion. When your mind is a place of confusion, it is difficult to perceive the order of His kingdom. By clearing the clutter, you are making your mind a more hospitable place for the presence of God. You are making your inner sanctum a place of communion, rather than a place of confinement. When you look back at your written journey after months or years, you will realize that you haven't just been recording thoughts. You will see that you have been recording a dialogue. You will see pages where you cried out in what felt like total darkness. And then, a few pages later, you will see where grace answered. You will see where you were blind to a specific pattern. And then, through the act of writing, you were given sight. You will see the hand of God mirrored in the hand of the writer. This physical record becomes an anchor for your faith. When the next storm comes and your brain won't have to rely on a vague memory of getting through it. You can reach into your drawer, open your journal, and see the physical evidence of God's faithfulness. You can show your brain the map of how you survived the last mountain. This provides a level of neurological confidence that positive thinking can never touch. It is the confidence of recorded history. So, as we conclude this deeper look into the how, I want to remind you that the power is not in the pen itself, and the power is not even in your amazing plastic brain. The power is in the truth. Writing is simply the delivery system for that truth. It is the mechanism that allows the truth to bypass your defenses, move through your filters, and reach the root of your being. It is the way the word becomes flesh. In your own neurological pathways, this is where most people get stuck. They wait until they feel like writing. They wait for a moment of inspiration or a day of peace. But the feeling follows the action. This is a fundamental law of the mind. You don't write because you have clarity. You write to get clarity. You don't write because you are peaceful. You write to find peace. If you wait until the garage is clean to start organizing it, you will wait forever. You have to start in the middle of the mess. You have to start while your hands are shaking and your mind is looping. If you take only one thing from our time together today, let it be this. Your mind is not a trap that you are stuck in. It is a garden that you have been given the tools to tend. The heavy thoughts that are looping in your head, right? Now those sentences that make you feel like you are failing or that the future is hopeless, they are not permanent. They are not who you are. They are just unprocessed data. They are unplanted seeds that are rolling around on the floor of your mind, causing you to trip. Give them a place to land. Give them a form. Give them to the paper. As you do, the rewiring will happen. It is an inevitable biological and spiritual process. The pressure in your chest will drop. The clutter in your vision will clear, and you will find that the room of your mind is no longer a place of confinement where you are locked in with your demons, but a place of communion where you can walk with your Creator. This is the promise of the renewed mind. It is a mind that is no longer conformed to the patterns of this world, the patterns of panic, the patterns of constant noise, and the patterns of revolving but never resolving. Instead, it is a mind that is transformed by the constant, honest, and courageous pouring out of the heart. In our next session, I want to show you the specific lament structure found in the Psalms. We are going to look at the ancient template for writing that has been used for 3,000 years to move a human soul from total darkness to radiant light in the span of a single page. There is a pathway in the way David wrote that we can follow today with our own pens. Until then, I challenge you to take just 10 minutes today. Do not worry about being deep. Do not worry about being godly. Just be honest. Watch what happens to your heart when the inside becomes the outside. Watch how the monster in the garage becomes just a box in the driveway. The exit door is open. The pen is in your hand. The paper is waiting. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. What is one thought that has been looping in your mind this week? One broken tool in your mental garage that you are ready to offload onto the driveway of the paper. Let's create a community of watchmen who are no longer afraid of their own inner world, but are diligent in guarding and tending their hearts. If this deeper dive into the mechanism was helpful for you, please consider sharing it with someone who is struggling with the weight of overthinking or the fog of anxiety. Sometimes, simply knowing how the brain works is the key. That unlocks the courage to pick up the pen for the first time. And if you haven't yet, join us on this journey of faith and the mind by subscribing. There is so much more to uncover about the fearfully and wonderfully made architecture of our souls and the ways in which God has provided us with the tools for our own renewal. May you find the peace that comes from the pouring out and the strength that comes from the rewiring of the truth. Your mind is being renewed, and the work has already begun.